Alright, hello everybody and welcome to another round of LSR League Racing action here in Group Number 1. We're on to round number 8 as we head to not my favorite track on the calendar, in fact one of my least favorite, but we're heading to Saudi Arabia. Hitting up the fastest street circuit on the Formula 1 calendar for 21 laps at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Got a bit of a lighter showing here today, but also probably going to see a couple of fun new liveries. Of course, B-Tom leading us out in the pink V-Carb, being the first one underway there. Of course, getting underway. Still waiting on one more driver. Going to be trying to get Zrusky in here, but definitely a little bit of a lighter showing. Of course, always unfortunate to have these lighter showings. But again, they'll happen every once in a while, especially around the holidays. But of course, Jeddah, that first sector, very, very technical, and honestly a massive, massive pain in the ass. And then from there, it's basically full throttle, with some slight exceptions to jump down into only about really fifth gear at this section of corners here. Quick little chicane before it's basically one large DRS zone all the way back down into turn number 1. But very high speed, going to be seeing likely a lot of DRS trains. We saw a big one as Zrusky struggling with EA servers. I'm keeping an eye out for you to show up on the friends invites. Okay, there we go. I just sent you a new one. Hopefully it works now that we're actually in the lobby. But we'll have to see on that. We'll stick with B-Tom, but looking through the kind of scoreboard there, definitely want to keep an eye on the likes of Giannis in there, as Giannis makes his return. But of course, you got to last down into turn 1, best overtaking spot on the circuit. Really want to attack those curbs hard, but the exit here, super important, can lose a lot of time. Head through that quick little kink left of technically turn number 3. Turn 4, got to really be careful about that inside wall. Can really destroy that tire. Through 5, and then into 6 and 7, another double left, double right then through 8 and 9. Maybe take a little bit of a curb, but really attack the curb on the exit there through 11. You can see the rear end sliding around a little bit for B-Tom. And it's a 32-0 through that first sector. So you get into this hairpin on the backside of the circuit. A little bit of traffic up ahead for the pink machine, but keeping it nice and tight to the wall. Again, trying to cut down that distance by as much as possible. And from here, it's just carry as much speed as you can. You save a lot of ERS in that first chunk of the lap, so that we can dump all of that extra power down this back, not quite a straight, as it's just a shade over a minute through the first 2 sectors for B-Tom. Of course, continuing to blast away now. Again, just got to keep it really tight to that left-hand side wall. Of course, you come up into that final corner, head right, really open up this final corner, get down to about 3rd gear, get a quick shift up into 4th to get that traction dead on. And B-Tom now going to be powering to the line, and the first lap time on the board in this session is going to be a 27.245 from the American. So we'll see how that goes. Is Zrusky saying that at least time trial loaded, as there he joins. Tristan, meanwhile, at the top, 26.698 for the Group 2 man, who jumps to the top of the order. So there is our 18th driver, who should be able to take control. Robin in his LSR G1 return after some time off, getting back underway. 28-1 from Muncher, getting us started. Just kind of see exactly how technical this first sector is. We'll jump on board with Robin, as you can keep it really easy through that first double left, through this double right, and then technically a little left chicane there. It's really difficult. As you can see, Robin there actually picking up an invalidation, and almost certainly won't be the last one. As Fight Me Nowbot shoots right to the top of the order, 26.153 from the Ferrari man, who dominated last time out at Monza. Doing a really nice job at taking that provisional pole time. Expect that time to fall even more as this track potentially starts to ramp up. Lurka, meanwhile, 26.417. Very solid lap time to get himself up into the top 3. And Vanzantino, one flat will slot himself into 4th for the moment. Of course, Kendrick's still in the pits. Soa making his way through Sector 1. Mango now 59.8 through the first 2 sectors. He'll go 3rd fastest. So picking up a good chunk of time there, seemingly, on Beatom through that final sector. So Beatom potentially going for a little bit more in the way of race pace, potentially, because both Mango and Beatom's time were pretty commensurate through the first 2 sectors. Really only a 2/10 difference crossing that Sector 2 timing marker. But definitely a shock to see Beatom down there in 6th, potentially. Are we looking at a prep lap from Beatom? Soa, meanwhile, 1 minute 0.4 through 2 sectors. So he's showing a little bit down right now. Yana, slowest time out of anyone so far, 28.362, so potentially a mistake at some point during that lap. Again, very easy to just run that little bit wide. Soa there showing us some of that. As you can see him get a little bit loose under braking there. He'll use the wall, and it'll be a 27.2 from Soa, so pretty close to Beatom, but a big slam into the wall. I might have missed that on Beatom's first lap as well, as he seemed a little bit slow through that final corner, so potentially that was some of the cause there. Got a bunch of cars running on pretty low fuel. You got Sparko making his way around the final couple of corners. Of course, you're seeing, because minimum fuel is 2.5 laps, you'll see a lot of drivers run that fuel. But of course, they'll run out on the way back to the start-finish line. Here comes MacT now out of the final corner. Will pick up a little bit of a toe off his teammate diving in the pits there of Vanzantino. MacT to the line for his first effort, 27.353. Of course, going to be looking for a little bit better on that one. But we'll have to wait and see. Zroski now getting underway for his first effort now that he's been able to join the session. So we'll see how much he can put together. Illyrian, 1 minute 0.2 through the first 2 sectors on his first effort. Of course, in that chrome McLaren. Making his way now into the final corner. He'll get on the power pretty smoothly. Getting very up close with that wall. Of course, DRS open, going to be keeping it really tight to the line. 127.3 will be enough to put him into the top 10, but not much further. It's only a 3.95 for the moment for Illyrian. So we'll jump to a couple of those other drivers still on laps. I believe the leader may be Jaramelon. I believe that may be Hog Rider just up ahead, giving him a little bit of a tow. Or at least I assume that's Jaramelon there on an out lap. Beatom seemingly a little bit further back, might be going for a second push. But here comes the Sauber into the final corner now, being trailed by, I believe, the Alpine of Sparko, who will also keep an eye on as he makes his way to the line. Jaramelon, 27.1, that'll take him 7th fastest. Sparko's first LSR attempt will place him only 14th for the moment. Zroski now making his way out of the final corner. 101.006 through the first 2, 27.958 is the end result. So I think, the Mercedes driver just trying to start to get his legs under him at this stage. And we'll see if he can continue to climb up the field at all. Hog Rider there, actually going to run into some traffic, gets up on the curb as seemingly started very tight with that Aston Martin. So I think was a bit lucky there not to have a bigger incident. Crazy Riatudo, meanwhile, to the line. It would have been a 49.7. We'll see if he has enough fuel in the tank to go again. He will be attacking those first couple of corners. Definitely be interesting to watch there. A couple of drivers making their ways out for a second push lap. Got Lurka underway. You got Fight Me Now bot with that pretty considerable advantage as of right now. Making his way into the final corner. We'll jump on board as he comes to this final corner. Of course, going to open up very wide as we see in real life just to make that exit all the more easier. Also, he gives you that little bit extra room to get that lap prepped before you take off. And he'll get underway. Of course, down to turn 1, getting really tight to that wall on the right-hand side and really attacking that inside curb. Maybe a little bit of missed timing there, though, from the Scuderia. In through turn 4 now, keeping it very tight to, again, really utilize that inside curve to try and hook the car a little bit. Get it to turn in, doing the same thing through this middle sector here. And, of course, in qualifying, going to be pretty close to flat, but find me now about getting a little bit loose. And it's that, I believe it's 10 and 11 chunk where it's not just a simple flick it right and you're good. It is a little bit of a chicane as you wrap off polish off sector 1 there. And that can lead to some of those misses. Beaton, meanwhile, 26.961 on a previous go of things, so very solid lap there, as 7:20 left to go here in qualifying. Lurka, as he makes his way through sector 2, a little bit loose there as well through the end of sector 1, but does a nice job at holding it. Managing to carry on with that lap and even picking up a 10th through sector 1, saving a little bit of ERS as we make our way through the hairpin before it's pretty close to flat from here to the line. Remember, Lurker's got a lot of time to make up if he wants to go try and chase down Fight Me Now Bot and hold off the likes of Mango or potentially even Shruz a little bit further behind. Lurka pushing his way now. Again, pretty flat from here to the line and only up almost 2/10. So how aggressive will he be through these, really final 2 corner combinations in order to pick up more of that time? Running out of ERS, actually, is Lurka, apparently. Not sure if that's an ERS recovery technique or not. Actually, what did seem to be a little bit ERS recovery there for Lurka, as he prepped that final lap, getting really aggressive with track limits there, but only good enough for 1.2 tenths. Shruz, meanwhile, Tristan, up 2 tenths there. He'll jump up to 3rd quickest. He'll unseat Mango, who's just getting underway with his next lap. Vanzantino, meanwhile, jumped up into 5th. Beatom, about a 10th and a half up on his next effort through Sector 1. Mango, meanwhile, with a bit of a mistake there, he's invalidated. As Mango seemingly with, not sure if that's controller issues, but Mango is having some sort of a concern there. Is he going to get back underway? He will. I believe he just made a mistake and was trying to stay off circuit. We'll jump to Beatom then. And he's lost a little bit of time in Sector 2, so how aggressive will he be in this final sector to try and make up that last bit of time? May pick up a nice little bit of a toe. Again, the toe not very strong in this year's game. Certainly something that we'll hope to see corrected. But into the final corner now. Of course, definitely polished it up on his second effort. We can see that back end starting to step out a little bit as you want to be really aggressive on that throttle. Jeramelin 8th quickest, Soa 6th quickest. Beatom to the line, only 5th fastest. But again, just trying to get himself into that front-running picture. And that very nice pink V-carb. Soa doing a nice job, improving by half a second. MacT's invalidated on that next lap. Jeramelin, I believe, will be on a cooldown lap here. Actually, no, Jeramelin up about a quarter of a second there through Sector 1. So we'll stick with the Sauber through the remainder of his lap, as I believe he's the only driver on circuit for the moment that's really on a representative push lap. But pushing his way hard through this second sector. Mango saying no force feedback. So Mango with a potential failure. And I think he went back out, and I think he's in the wall. So I think Mango's having tech issues now, as Mango's been disqualified from the session. So Mango will start from the back, if at all, as he's got significant technical issues. We saw the same thing happen last week, which meant that he did not participate in the race in Monza after what was a pretty comfortable qualifying session. Jeramelin with a very nice lap. That'll put him up into 4th, 26.596 for the Sauber. Got a couple of drivers making their ways to the line. Beatom's, I believe, making his way back out on an in-lap. Here comes Illyrian out of the final corner. Will the McLaren, apologies, be diving into the pits here? He will. Wasn't enough significantly to justify potentially not getting a final lap on the board. But he'll slide into 11th for the moment. Zrosky, meanwhile, on a push lap for what will be likely his final lap of the session. Across that first sector, potentially, though, double out. Must be, actually, no, he's not going to have the fuel or the time. So I think a big mistake there in Sector 1 for Zrosky means that his qualifying will be over. And so it does not look like he'll advance further than that 27-3. It's going to be a tall order to potentially get all the way back around to the pits. Jaramelon might be out of this too, as you can see the Sauber just up ahead. Jaramelon might also be out by taking that lower fuel. So I don't think either of these drivers will have an opportunity to get a final lap in. There's, of course, the McLaren a little bit further up the road. That is Giannis, who will be prepping his final lap of the session as drivers start to make their way out of the pits. Of course, due to that yellow flag, due to Jaramelon being low on fuel, we cannot see what the time on the clock is remaining. But a number of drivers making their ways out for their final laps as Giannis gets us underway for the first final lap of this session. But Giannis through sector 1, of course, has to get it really dialed in, does it very nicely, and even doesn't have to attack that inside curb all too much there through turn number 5. So a very good start from the man from Greece. Again, very, very tight, very tighty there through that first sector. We got a Mercedes off in the wall, and it's Giannis up about a tenth and a half on that first go of things. So Giannis pushing hard, trying to find all the time possible, but now coming up to some traffic. Got an Aston Martin in the way, got an Alpine in the way. That's going to dive off out in front of him. Does a nice job to do that. And now, again, just 2 more braking zones left to go in this lap. Can Giannis polish a very tidy lap off? Zarowski will not get an extra lap in. Giannis, meanwhile, up a second on his first lap time. So already tracking to get into the top 10. Can he go any further than that? Has he managed to hold on to enough ERS to give himself an opportunity to jump up the field? Of course, both McLarens today running that nice chrome livery. Here comes Giannis to the line for his final effort. That lap time only good enough for P12. So it'll slot him in behind Zarowski for the moment. So potentially seeing a little bit of perhaps being a little bit cold doing the difference there. Fight Me Now bot. Pretty clean looking end of sector 1 there. As he's pushing, he's up about a tenth through the first sector. Lurka gets underway as well. You got Kendricks and Hogrider making their way to the line. Kendricks 37.5. He'll get an extra effort. Hogrider to the line. I believe doesn't have a lap as of yet. Crazy Riatudo underway as well, as the track going to be very busy towards the end of this lap. As you can see, about everybody getting a lap in, but there's a big train of cars as Fight Me Now bot now up a quarter of a second on his final push lap, as he's throwing everything at this Jeddah Corniche circuit. But keep an eye on that mini-map down on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, as that could really impact a couple of these drivers as we get to the end of the lap. Jaramelon will not improve from 4th. Fight Me Now bot out of the final corner very cleanly now. And so he'll push to the line. Soa will not improve. He'll be out of the session. Fight Me Now bot goes even quicker. 25.9 for the man from Ferrari. Trying to get another pole. Hogrider, 15th quickest. B-Tom coming to that Sector 2 timing marker. Can he show any improvement? He'll pick up a nice little toe from that's Robin up ahead of him, who's going to dive out of the way. And B-Tom's up a 10, so he's improving. Truss is invalidated, so he will not improve. Lurka up a little bit over a 10th. Can he find any sort of magic in this final sector to potentially steal pole away in the dying stages? He cannot. He'll improve by a 10th, but it's not quite going to be enough. B-Tom now through the final corner. He'll do it smoothly. Williams ahead of him is Kendricks, who will jump up into 14th place. B-Tom now powering to the line. He'll start in the second row. He'll jump up into 4th. And now just waiting on a couple other drivers to head to the line. Illyrian's invalidated, so I believe the last driver we'd be waiting on is Sparko, who is also not improving. So that means it will be Fight Me Now bot on pole here in Jeddah for the 25 laps that we will have after a brief break. Of course, congratulations on Fight Me Now About, of course, picking up that bonus point for pole. I think definitely a shock to see Shruz all the way up there in third. But Dirty Air definitely being quoted right now as a factor for a couple of drivers. But Fight Me Now About doing a great job getting out early, getting some clean air, and taking pole position for what is honestly very important starting position here. I'm pretty convincingly as well, about a quarter of a second advantage. A bit of a wider field spread as well. Of course, last week at Monza, granted, albeit it was wet qualifying, which you might expect a little bit more of a field spread, but through the screen, the top 14 separated by only a second. But of course, we will have a quick break here. Of course, any drivers listening, do stay ready in case somebody does ready up early. But I will start the 2 minutes once we are on the grid. But probably looking at a one-stop race in the absence of safety cars. I haven't done a whole ton of testing here, but 2 minutes countdown has started. But we'll have to wait and see. I think, again, turn 1 and 2 being a chicane here definitely lends itself to some potential incidents as drivers try to pick up positions off the start, especially with this being the hardest braking zone on the circuit, which of course, and by hardest, biggest deceleration zone on the circuit is something that will be important to consider. But of course, the wall is always going to be a big factor. Of course, going too wide into turn 4 going to be a big factor as you try to keep it tight. Again, really got to be careful to keep it out of that wall, as just the slightest miscalculation means that front left axle is just completely shattered and leads you to being out of this race. And that's something you can do even in clean air when there's not really a lot of pressure on you. So we'll keep an eye on exactly what is going on here. Where do you think you're finishing? Hopefully you are finishing, because we'll have to see exactly what happens. I certainly hope you finish in the top 10, but we'll have to wait and see. But haven't done a whole ton of field practice. I definitely need to do some actual driving practice. Should hopefully be in a decent spot for Group 2 tomorrow, but based on Shruz's pace right now, we'll see exactly how that pans out. I certainly have an interesting setup coming. We'll see how well it works. I have hope that my setup will work out, but it's very aggressive. It's very kind of against what I normally go. But of course, the big thing is, as I'll give the ready up command, all right, how much fuel? Can't help you there. As Sparko was disconnected. I generally go like pretty neutral on fuel. So I can't really, I don't have much of much knowledge on exactly how to change fuel around, as Sparko has rejoined. Yeah, generally I feel like neutral, especially when there's so much tight racing in a league, is generally a little bit more the way to go. But I haven't done a whole ton of estimation with Jeddah as a circuit on fuel. But we are all on the grid, 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we're underway here in Jeddah. Seemingly a good jump from the start of the grid as Fight Me Now Bot fairly comfortable. Going to open up turn 1 and get through it rather comfortably there. Again, a bunch of the field getting back there. Big contact there. That was 3 cars getting connected. Muncher, Illyrian, and Zrosky all getting connected there on the exit. So 3 into 1 just do not mix. And there's already 3 drivers dropping down the grid, and that's 3 drivers with damage as well. So very unfortunate there, but it's a good start from Fight Me Now Bot to pull away. Lurka held on to second. Beatom was able to leapfrog Tristan for third in that run through the first couple of corners. as they get underway rather comfortably here. You can see everybody getting into that single file. Zdrowski may have escaped without damage as well, importantly. I think being one of the lucky drivers there, I think Illyrian certainly picked up some front wing damage. But I'm not sure if anybody else did. Of course, no DRS for this first lap. Going to give Fight Me Now Bot an opportunity to start to pull away here. We'll go ahead and pull up the tire graphic as yellow flags. That is for Hog Rider, who has gone round. Is that Hog Rider that's Hog Rider getting loose over the curbing? Apologies. And now his front wing is gone. So that's two drivers now with some massive damage. Mango's up into 11th, but Fight Me Now Bot sets a new fastest lap of the race on that first effort there. As well, starting on the hards, we've seen this a couple of times from the Ferrari driver, starting on the harder compound, but still getting really nice starts, putting himself in a good position to eventually jump up the field. Three drivers diving into the pits here on lap number 2. Muncher, Hog Rider, Illyrian, all getting damage fixed, and that's bad news for Illyrian starting on the hards, as he'd be hoping to do better. We'll have to wait and see how this continues. Fight Me Now Bot, though, doing a great job opening up that gap to a second, as he now has an opportunity to start to pull away. Will this now put Lurka under pressure from Beaton behind as DRS opens? Tristan doing a nice job at keeping pace. You're taking a look at some of the possible race strategies. That lap 11 to 13 window, probably what we're going to be waiting on for drivers to dive into the pits. And of course, safety cars still a potential force to change the game in this one. Well, Fight Me Now Bot now comfortably underway, starting to pull away as we head into the final corner. Of course, dirty air going to be a big factor for a lot of these drivers a little bit further back. You can see Tristan with a bit of a slide a bit further back. It's going to put him under pressure from Jaramelon down into turn 1. We'll see if he can take advantage. Without DRS, is Lurka going to be put under pressure here? He will not. Tristan will hold on to 4th for the moment as well. Sorry, it seemed briefly like, I thought I saw a visual of a raindrop for a second there, which I would have expected to see something about in the Group 1 chat before the race if it were going to be a factor, which I don't believe it will. You can see Tristan, I think, really trying to throw a lot at this circuit to try and gain ground. But you're seeing how big of a factor that clean air is, I think, on the opening lap. Fight Me Now Bot now 2 seconds clear as Tristan getting very loose there through the hairpin. That's going to open the door for Jaramelon, and it's going to be the Sauber and the Mercedes now side by side. It's going to be the Mercedes with the inside as we head into the chicane. The Sauber going to be forced wide. He is going to pick up a 3-second time penalty there, but was he forced off? And that's a Aston Martin round. That's Van Zantino rounding the wall, and that's Hog Rider out of the race. That's going to bring out a virtual safety car here, as Van Zantino trying to get that car back together. Hog Rider is out of the race. And so that'll bring out an early virtual safety car here. That will tighten up the pack by quite a bit, as 2 drivers out very quickly. Or in quick succession. I did not see where Hog Rider went off to, went off to cause that virtual safety car. But we'll have to wait and see. Of course, it's going to allow drivers to save that little bit of fuel. But of course, Van Zantino's car was still open. Point of that, Van Zantino actually going to dive into the pits here. He'll at least get a cheaper pit stop now to switch tires. Was it potentially our first T4 victim? Was Hog Rider, as DRS will now be enabled. We'll get back to racing speeds, as seemingly as Lurka picked up a very nice restart compared to Fight Me Now Bot. That gap's now down to just a second, because that Sector 1 was where Fight Me Now Bot was pulling out a lot of the time. Can Lurka potentially close up, get within DRS range? Has that battery recharged enough? Can he for the lead? Not quite. But it's going to be very tight. It is now the opportunity this chase pack needed to potentially get back into it. Tristan now potentially starting to struggle a little bit as well. You can see that gap starting to open up, but he's got a little bit of gap back to Soa. Giannis up in the top 10. He's being chased down by Mango. Good start for him on the hards as well, managing to get his way up the field after starting from the back of the pack. Of course, Mango just trying to pick up any points possible in this one, and now with DRS range on last season's Group 2 champ. Fight Me Now Bot down through into the first corner. Lurka actually picking up some DRS onto the Ferrari. Going to help him to close the gap a little bit, but I'm guessing a lot of battery used by the Williams there to do that, given that he was out of DRS range on that first DRS zone. He's already making their way through turn 4, and see again that gap starting to open. Of course, I'm sure Jared Mellon going to be looking to get that 3-second time penalty for corner cutting removed. I think it was definitely hard to see exactly how that incident went down that led to the Sauber picking up that 3-second time penalty, as he and Tristan going side by side into this chicane coming up here before we get into the DRS zones. Of course, really a one-line portion of track. So how much of a factor that is, we will have to wait and see. But Fight Me Now Bot's really opened that gap back up. I think Lurka, I would imagine, must have been trying to pick up a lot of battery down that back straight, because Fight Me Now Bot has absolutely taken off on the hard compound tire. Mango, meanwhile, making his way past Giannis. Nice move there for the Ferrari. Settle Mango up into the top 10 and give him an opportunity to go chasing after some more points. They got Kendricks down the road now, 2 seconds. And so we'll see if he can bring people with him. We'll see if Giannis has a move, though. Meanwhile, up towards the front, you got Jared Mellon starting to close. Jared Mellon actually looking like he might have some of the most pace of that group. Tristan doing a nice job defending from Soa, still holding on to 5th place, but getting a little bit loose. Will that open up the door for the Red Bull, who's going to look around the outside, trying to keep that Mercedes closed very tightly. There's actually going to be contact there between Tristan and Soa. Tristan, I think, thinking he was a bit more clear than he was. Luckily, no lasting damage, at least no lasting apparent damage on either car, but certainly getting tight, getting elbows out here as 2 4-way fights starting to actually, or not really even 2 4-way fights starting to form. It's really Fight Me Now Bot trying to run away with it at this point. And then a 3-way fight and a 4-way fight. Meanwhile, MacT's trying to sneak up the inside of Soa. They're going to be side by side. And once again, it's going to be an Aston Martin and another machine side by side into the chicane. We'll jump on board. There's contact there, and it's MacT having to jump off. Will that be deemed an illegal overtake by the game, however? And it will. MacT going to have to, I think, give that position back, which I think is fair. Certainly, due to that contact, you're not going to want to see contact be a factor there, but it was. As MacT not quite able to get the move done. Yellow flag in Sector 1. That's for Muncher. Zdrusky, meanwhile, back up into 12th. Here comes the Aston Martin going outside of 1 Red Bull. Robin, meanwhile, with a run as he's up into 7th. You can see Mango there closing very quickly into the background, and Kendricks into this fight as well. So quickly now becoming a 5-way fight is Tristan now with a potential chance to start a breakaway. Meanwhile, up in that battle for second, B-Tom just staying latched on to the rear wing of Lurka. Can give you an update about at least the driver standings as they sit for the moment. Racing Bulls currently leads the way by 37 points ahead of Williams. So pretty tight scrapping between the drivers that currently sit in 2nd and 3rd. And of course, B-Tom still leads the drivers' standings by 34 points over Lurka. But still lots of races left to go. 69 points back, meanwhile, is Fight Me Now Bot, who did miss 3 rounds of the season as well. But in races where he has attended, has been very, very dominant. I believe picking up his 2nd win last weekend. But out of the 4 races that he has participated in, 3 podiums for the Ferrari driver, and 2 of them being victories. Of course, trying to make it another one here in Jeddah. Meanwhile, Tristan unable to really make a breakaway from MacT as Robin starting to get into a rhythm. Same thing with Kendricks as you're about to see Mango there potentially. No, Mango's a little bit too far back for that camera angle to see, as you can see all the cars up here there through the final corner. As lap 8 of 25 now. Tristan doing everything he can really to keep some of these cars behind. Really trying to break the toe, trying to keep people out of rhythm. There goes Mango down the inside of Kendricks is the Ferrari with a very nice run. That'll slot him up into 9th and give him an opportunity to potentially go further forward. Crazy Riatudo jumping up the field as well. P14 is tough, Zdrowski. I think it's worth noting as well as that's Tristan in the wall. Tristan into that wall at turn 14. I'll be shocked if that's not a safety car. As through the yellow flags we go. As, through turn 5 there. Surprised that wasn't a safety car. But we'll continue racing. As there's the turn 5 being an absolute menace, as Tristan was on for a very nice result, and just like that, he is out. And that's certainly not the last time we'll see something like that this weekend. As I'd certainly expect a lot more of that to happen. 4 seconds now is Fight Me Now Bot's advantage, however. And that now means that MacT is leading this pack. And of course, he won't have DRS here, so here comes Robin in his LSR return. In the first show in the season, he's going to hold off for one corner, but is he going to just hold off, make that move into turn 1? Yeah, Kendricks has the reserve role, being that he is a multi-time G2 champ. So he will race here on occasion. There's Robin looking to the inside. Going to be a little bit of banging of wheels there between MacT and Robin. Going to be a little bit of connection. That's going to make it 3 wide here on the exit briefly. Is that going to allow Soa through 2 spots? He's got the outside now, as there's contact between Soa and MacT now, as chaos here in Sector 1. That's going to allow MacT back up with the advantage. There's big contact between Kendricks and Robin now, as Robin with major damage. Same thing with Kendricks. And whoa! And that's going to bring out a safety car. As Kendricks, just tons of contact there. As you just see how deadly that first sector is. As I just due to that broadcast angle, I couldn't see if Kendricks was just out of, was sliding if there was a bit of a slide there that caused Kendricks to go out of control. But you can see why this track can be so deadly. And it's just like that. So many drivers getting caught up. Because, you had 2x2 into turn number 5. And that's already... and turn 5, as we saw from Tristan, as a hard corner to get right when you're on your own. And so you make that side by side. You got 2 different drivers trying to make the most of it. And that's the sort of chaos that can unfold. Fight Me Now Bot will dive into the pits, as everybody behind him will as well. Of course, Red Bull going to be one of the biggest losers in this one, in terms of time. Ferrari shouldn't lose too much time, as Fight Me Now Bot should be pretty comfortably out ahead. But I think it's definitely an interesting, yet never done it so well before. Yeah, I mean, again, that turn 5, I don't think that's the last time that we're going to see that happen this weekend. I think we're going to at least see it once tomorrow. But I think, definitely do deserve a lot of plaudits, even for that first chunk of time. But chaos unfolding here, bringing out the safety car. And now this puts the hard runners in a very interesting bind for the rest of this race, as we saw that the hards looked very, very strong during that first stint. And whether that's due to Fight Me Now Bot simply being the fastest driver on track by a country mile today, or if that's due to the hards just being naturally a bit better, whether that's in terms of in terms of temperature management, them being a little bit easier to hold in the best temperature window where they don't overheat quite as much, specifically in the dirty air. We shall see. Looking like Kendricks got put in the wall on purpose. I don't think Kendricks got put in. I think that was just, especially because that is a one-line section of track. And so I think, if you try to go offline, because, a lot of these drivers are going to be trying to stay aggressive, going to be trying to keep it very side by side. Where I don't know if that was, if Kendricks was trying to, the thing is, I don't know if Kendricks was trying to rejoin there as well, and just slammed into whoever's side pod that was. I believe it was Robin he was side by side with. Yeah, the rejoin by him was insane. Yeah, I think, it's definitely going to be interesting to see exactly how that goes on. I think, Tristan, I think it's worth definitely reviewing. I imagine we will be reviewing that track limits after the race, trying to determine whether it is just a warning or whether that 3-second time penalty is valid. I didn't catch a good angle to be able to judge on it. So and Giannis, by the way, are diving into the pits again here. I imagine that is going to be for the hard compound tire. I think both drivers not confident in the life of that medium set. And so seeing Muncher and Illyrian well behind the field, they're going to take the opportunity here to slap on a hard compound tire. That certainly has looked to be the better tire. So we'll see how that continues. I think Mango's certainly having a great race so far. 18th all the way up to 6th. Yeah, Tristan, I imagine we'll just be getting the... We also might not be getting the incident report from him either. He may end up just taking it as a heads up. I certainly don't think it's a fault of either driver, and I don't think it would be a manner of one driver, we take that 3-second and would move it over to somebody else. But I think it's definitely something interesting to review. I think the game does a generally decent job of saying, hey, you gained a significant advantage. But we'll have to wait and see. Zorowski having a nice recovery. He's back up in the 9th after being caught up in an incident at turn 1. Who is Fightbot in the lead? Fight Me Now Bot is a long-time LSR member. Very much a G1 folk. A G1 a G1 staple. I had to try and think of the word there for a second. But has shown a lot of pace. Already he's picked up 2 wins this season, including a very dominant showing last weekend at Monza. And of course, picked up pole in this race. Why isn't Fight Me Now Bot an esports driver? Hey, he might be. I don't know what he does in the rest of his time. But, to be fair, G1 is pretty close to esports. Of course, it's definitely a bit of a different lineup today. Got a bunch of reserves in attendance, which, again, having reserves is understandable. As Crazy Riatudo diving into the pits. So it's now the Haas driver taking a fresh set. So what tire will Crazy Riatudo go for? He had picked up front wing damage, actually. So he's going to pick up a front wing change, and he's going to go over to the medium set of tire, which at this stage in the race, I think is actually not a bad decision. I think that we saw that the pit window for that medium set of tire, that first pit stop phase for medium to hard was around that lap 11 to 13 window. I think you can make, for what will be lap 13 once we get underway. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Popeyes is starting to come back up a little bit. Been talking a little bit quickly, so trying to get back under control, but we should be good. Zrusky, you and me both, because I would like a win. I'm kidding a little bit, but it would be very much to my benefit if you're the one that goes into the wall at T5 and not me. Either you, Shruz, stratting would be useful. Whoever else has pace. I want to win this season, and we'll see what happens. But Riatudo will rejoin the pack. Zorowski, what are you doing in here? You're about to get back racing. Focus on your driving. But 15 drivers remain. It's not everyone against me. I'm against everyone, Tristan. But safety car in this lap. That'll mean Fight Me Now Bot has control. So it'll be interesting to see when exactly he takes off. I think the obvious place is just before that final corner. As you can see the Mercedes safety car, you can see the marker down in the bottom right-hand side of your screen making its way through the final corner. Still making its way, of course, into the pit lane, as we'll make our way through the final corner as we are ready to go back racing. Fighting Autobot still going to hold the pack back a little bit. Of course, he does have a tire compound advantage. He's going to be leaving it rather late. He'll take off just past that DRS activation line. As again, just you can see Fighting Autobot trying to heat up those medium compound tires into turn one for the first time. Seemingly everybody through comfortably. It looked like McT was looking to have a move. A little bit of contact a bit further back. That's between the Aston Martin of Vanzantino and the Red Bull of Soa. And that's Alpine with front wing damage. That's Sparko without a front wing. And now he's in no man's land as it's 2x2 through there. It's the Alpines getting together as Sparko not really having anywhere to go to get out of the way. As there's his teammate down the inside, it's not going to be the Hassel Riatudo trying to go around the outside. As everybody just trying to keep it clean, but it's Fight Me Now with a great restart here. He'll jump up into 13th. There's, you got Robin looking down the inside of Mango, which is a battle that we've seen numerous times here in LSR Group 1. Bit of contact there as they'll be a little bit laggy, but still stay side by side. A little bit of ghosting into each other as well. Who's going to come out in front? I think ghosting saving us there for what could have been an almighty incident, but they are quite literally neck and neck coming here down the back straight, and it's going to be Mango who eventually comes out in front. Still holds on to that P6 as both drivers on the mediums looking to get going. Is Mango, I think, a bit of a slide there. As I'm not sure if that's trying to get some tire temp going. Or that's trying to say to Robin, hey, let's work together and stick with this lead fight. Fight Me Now Bot, meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race, 2.5 is the gap behind. B-Tom looking to make a move, but has to stay put again. Muncher, meanwhile, battling Vanzantino through turn one. And I believe that will be the Alpine. That will be the Alpine confirmed, sliding up into the top 10 with 12 laps left to go. Making the way through Sector 2 then. Excuse me, I just got a text. Lap 14, B-Tom, DRS open. Can he this time get a move on Lurka? He's had to hold back for 14 laps here. But is this the opportunity for the pink V-Carb to potentially jump up the order? Of course, just as a quick heads up as well, we will be off next week for the Christmas holiday. So definitely be sure to enjoy that, and a Merry Christmas to everybody in advance. Of course, a little bit on theme here with 25 laps for what the December 25th holiday. Into turn one we go once again, and it's still Lurka doing a nice job holding on to P2. Fight Me Now Bot, meanwhile, isn't pulling away by as much. He's, certainly pulling up a little bit of a gap. Having the clean air, I think, certainly helps him. But he's not pulling up that gap by as much as we saw it a lap ago. Crazy Riatudo, meanwhile, able to get past Muncher, and so that's Riatudo now into the top 10. As really it's, a battle back there for P10. Must have been a mistake. No, Fight Me Now Bot has just had really overwhelming pace today. It was the same thing at Monza last week, where he was able to just kind of pull away with some of that clean air. I'd certainly be interested to know if, because I know that at least for my driving last week, it wasn't much tire temp and dirty air that was a factor. It was actually engine temp that was potentially a little bit of a factor. So I'm not sure if that could be potentially something that's weighing on a couple of these drivers. ERS management. ERS is definitely one of those ways that you can make up a lot of the gap on the car ahead. As Lurka, I think, really trying to dump some battery here. As you can see that gap closing to 1.4 seconds. I think you got a couple of drivers really going on the offensive here. As the hards, I think, also trying to get heated up a little bit. Lurka trying to go defensive here. Gonna try and hold that middle of the circuit. ERS management is so important here. Up to around 2.8 ahead, then he lost second. Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think it's also the hards starting to come into their own. Is look at how much that gap has come down. Yellow flag, sector 1, that's for Vanzantino who's gone round. So Vanzantino potentially getting collected in that battle for P10. Giannis and Illyrian going side by side. That's going to lose them a chunk of time on a potential point scoring result as well, as they're going to drop well back Ariatudo and Muncher. Of course, we're sticking with this battle for the lead. And also, maybe Fight Me Now Bot. We may be seeing the difference in strategy here. Fight Me Now Bot could be carrying a lot more, we could be seeing some ERS management. We could also be seeing some setup differences here. As it's definitely important to manage the higher downforce versus higher top speed, especially considering how technical Sector 1 is. Meanwhile, in this battle for P2, B-Tom, about as close as we've seen so far. And it's potentially Lurka's straight line speed, to finish that earlier statement, that's allowed him to keep ahead of B-Tom. Despite DRS advantage, is B-Tom going to take a jink to the inside, but think better of it? But it's going to be his best opportunity of the night so far. Into turn 1 for the 17th time in this race. DRS want to be wide open. Where's going to be B-Tom going to go? He's going to look to the inside, and it's going to be the white and pink machine up into P2 here on lap 17. As B-Tom, for the first time in this race, able to dispatch the Williams of Lurka. And he's slid up very nicely into that P2 position. Now we'll keep an eye on that gap, see if he can slide through. I think it's going to be interesting as well to keep an eye on Mango, who's fallen off of that lead pack. And I think that's kind of proof that those mediums are a bit more of a struggle, especially once you get to that lap 6-7 mark. Yes, you can all make the jokes in chat. I said the funny word. But Mango starting to fall off of that lead group a little bit, down to it's about a 2-second gap behind. As into the wall goes the Ferrari. But perhaps that's a bit of a sign that those mediums really start to fall off after just a couple of laps. As we saw Fight Me Now Bot pull out a gap early that really worked to his advantage on the hard compound tire on that first stint. Is that potentially some of what we're seeing now? Definitely going to be interesting to keep an eye on. As B-Tom has closed up that gap by about a second and a half. Josky might fraud a P9 here. We'll have to wait and see. He's technically in P8 right now with Robin picking up a time penalty. So he's already got one. Just would need one more. B-Tom as well closing up very nicely. That's a car in the wall. That is Robin in the wall. That's Robin out of the race. Down at turn, I believe, number 1. Yeah, it's Robin in the wall down at turn number 1. You can see that Red Bull out in the distance. And in his return to LSR, it ends in the way you never want your race to end. As I'm not sure what happened there. Potential contact there with his teammate or with Zroski. Leading Robin into the wall is Zroski chiming in. Certainly was something weird. Apparently reportedly tried to straight line Mango. So not sure what happened there. We could hear the contact on stream. But that'll bring out another safety car here on lap 18. And that potentially really saves Fight Me Now Bot. I think the more interesting question will be, will anybody try to brave it out on the tire set they are on for track position? Because I imagine Fight Me Now Bot is certainly going to dive into the pits. The hards, though, can certainly make it to the end, so it's an interesting decision point. Sparko going for softs, Vanzantino for mediums, as they were able to box. But it is decision time for your leaders. Once again, under full safety car. And looks like everybody going to be diving into the pits. Fight Me Now Bot going to be leading them in. Will anybody stay out? Jaramillan stays, Mac T's in, Mango's in, and it looks like everybody will dive into the pits here on lap number 18. Of course, definitely disappointing for Robin on his return. Muncher in, Reatudo in, it's Sots for Jerome. It's Hards for everybody else, so Jerome going aggressive. As he potentially thinks the softs are still a good tire to go to. Soa will go to the mediums, which I think certainly a good tire at this point in the race. Mango going to lose a little bit of time getting stacked up behind his teammate, so he'll get a slower stop. He'll come out in 7th. That leaves Zroski then in 8th. So I think certainly very interesting code. Those softs are going to die in 3 laps. That might be the rest of this race, though, is 3 laps. Of course, you got some time under safety car. With how quickly those tires are going to come up to temperature, you're certainly in a good spot to still hold on to those tires for the rest of this race. Granted, we saw how those mediums really fell off at around that 7-lap mark. No, I'm not saying the funny word again. So I imagine, yeah, like you said, those softs are really only going to be a good tire for about 3 laps. But is that all you're going to need in comparison to the hard? So potentially make a couple of moves. And then potentially that dirty air could be useful to fend off some of those drivers a little bit further back. Even 3% wear under SC slow conditions, that is also true, code, where that is also a factor. I'm actually not sure, while I have a moment, I can pull up my cheat sheet that I intend to use for tomorrow, as I imagine I will have a moment here, so I can actually give a little bit of a breakdown. Of course, it'll depend from setup to setup exactly how this tire wear will look. A couple drivers probably taking a little bit more of that rear wing angle, certainly than I will tomorrow. So I can go ahead and check sim racing setups. I mean, my cheat sheet that I made by myself. Okay, I'm a liar. I picked up my setups from somewhere else because it was easier than fully getting my own. But to give an idea, at full speed, what is the look? So we're probably looking at about 7 to 8% tire wear a lap on the softs, 5 to 6 on the mediums, and 4 to 5s on the hards. So I'm seeing that the soft tire, the max tire life, or the max tire usable life for those softs is still 11 laps. So you're still in a decent enough position. But it's certainly nothing guaranteed. Sparko going to dive into the pits again. We'll see if that extends the safety car window by 1 more lap. But it's going to be another sprint to the line here. As really, it's going to be no more. It's really going to be no more than 4 laps of racing remaining in this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Get a look at penalties real quick. 3 for Muncher, 3 for Jerome. Now I have a guy that makes setups for me, and just by that I got a second quicker. That's also fair. I'm not sure if you did you steal my setup? I don't think you did, but I got setups made for me as well. It's just easier that way, especially for some of the meta ones. It's definitely still worth tinkering with your setups if you do get them externally. Always worth doing some testing. We'll have to wait and see. Again, still waiting on Sparko's Alpine to rejoin the field as Sparko goes for the soft. As will it be a late safety car in message, or will Sparko not quite have the time? You guys are investing in setups? Yeah, with the amount of... I mean, I do. With the amount of time that I put in, with the amount of time that I put in and the fact that I have a job, I can do that. Especially with this being my first season on Wheel, I'm putting in a little bit more time. And again, it's just going to, as Sparko going to dive into the pits again, So Sparko really wanting the fresh tire. So now we'll be getting underway, and it'll be 4 laps to the finish. So who's going to come out on top? Fight Me Now Bot has led every single lap so far. Is going to be looking to potentially try and pick up that Grand Slam. Yeah, like that's it. I'm okay saying like, hey, I bought my setup. Hancock pay to win allegations. Stratting, the last time I won was like 2 years ago. I didn't have a podium in a year and a half before this season of Group 2. Shut your mouth. I didn't have a podium since that one random Portugal race in Group 1 that I almost won like a year and a half ago. Yes, Stratting, pay to lose. There you, much better. Pay to lose. Let's go with pay to not completely suck. But that is kind of fair. Also, fuck you. But with the field all stacked up, again, waiting for that safety car in message once again. And there is the safety car in this lap message. So Fight Me Now Bot once again with pack control. We saw him leave it pretty late on that last one. No clue about setup. I have enough of a clue to know what changes that I need to make sometimes, but it's just not all the time. It's definitely a challenge here and there. But you can see the Aston Martin safety car disappearing off into the distance and pulling into the pits. Fight Me Now Bot has kept the field a lot slower this time, so certainly seems like he will go early, and there is the jump from the Ferrari driver, and it's a good jump. Catches B-Tom a little bit by surprise, and starts to pull away here. So 6.5 tenths is the gap behind as we get back underway with 4 laps left to go. And you can see the field getting a little bit spread out. Riatudo falling a bit back. He's on that old set of hards. And he'll be battling over P10. Sparko going to retire from the session as I think he got potentially caught up in an incident at turn 1, and that's going to bring out another safety car. So just like that, we are right back to safety car conditions. As you'll excuse me for a moment. Keep in mind that the safety car will likely be shorter than others, both due to the nature of when it came out, as well as how many laps we have left. Of course, a little bit anticlimactic there for sure. This is the group I'm joining. This is definitely, definitely not a full strength group. Definitely expect a little bit stronger, but again, we'll have to see exactly how this goes. Again, I imagine that this we'll only see 1 lap here under safety car. But we'll have to see exactly what happens. Yeah, of course, preview for the next couple of races. Again, off next week, but we will be returning in 2 weeks' time for the next race of the season. But of course, you should be seeing at least some sort of a live stream for tomorrow for Group 2 action around the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix circuit. And when we return in 2 weeks' time, we will be heading to the Red Bull Ring in Austria, as Vanzantino is speeding in the pits. So Vanzantino basically knocking himself out. But it's going to be 4 rounds left to go in the season after this one. Our final 4 rounds, Austria, Australia, Vegas, and a sprint race at Brazil. So definitely be sure to subscribe and tune in for those if you haven't done so already. Definitely would be interested in getting you involved in the rest of the season and the next season, whether that ends up being Formula 125 or when we get the expansion for F1 26. So we'll have to see there. I think we're still waiting to plan our next season until we can figure out exactly when we will be receiving the F1 26 expansion. I imagine that EA and Cody's will be trying to get that F126 expansion to be lined up with the IRL Australian Grand Prix. I imagine they're trying to get it lined up with the start of the real season. So we'll see if we actually get that expansion then, or when that expansion is planned. So that way we can get back underway. Still no safety car in message. There is the safety car in message. So it'll be 2 laps of racing, and there'll be no safety cars from here to the end. So it is effectively green-white checkered rules now. So green-white checkered rules here in Jeddah. As you can see, everybody trying to get, Fight Me Now Bot particularly, trying to get some heat into those tires. You can see the Aston Martin safety car pulling into the pits down there in the distance. Fight Me Now Bot leaving it later once again. Caught B-Tom napping the first time. When will he go now? We saw him go right at the DRS line that first time. He's going to go a little bit earlier here, but damage here. That's an end plate gone as Jerome dives into the pits. Jerome dives into the pits and will retire with 3 to go. So Jerome is out. Zroski trying to jump up into 7th. As I think just a bit of concertina effect, meaning that he picked up damage. It's going to be Zroski and Muncher side by side. It's going to be Muncher coming out in front briefly as Zroski goes round. That's going to cause chaos behind as they went side by side as Giannis gets picked up. Same with Ria Tudo as Zroski just got loose. And he's now going to fall back into 12th. You can see that cause of back-to-back safety cars getting those cold tires and drivers being aggressive on a 2-lap sprint to the finish, just causing chaos here. But back up to the battle for the lead. It is still B-Tom in second, and he's done a nice job on this first lap. Back racing as yellow flag in sector 2. That's for the Hassa Crazy Ria Tudo, who's had an incident. He'll retire from the session, so Ria Tudo is out. No comment. But through the final corner for the penultimate time. Of course, DRS will be enabled on this final lap. A little bit of understeer, though, from Fight Me Now Bot will allow B-Tom to still keep it close as we start the final lap of what has been a very interesting Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Still a number of drivers in it, but B-Tom certainly the closest and a lot of straight line speed as they head down into turn 1. Of course, getting back racing through turn 4. They got half a second. B-Tom going to be dealing with a lot of dirty air here. As it's now effectively turned into a duel as Lurka's fallen a bit more back. He's 1.2 seconds back. With a gap, 3/4 of a second. So B-Tom still pushing hard, and he's given himself an opportunity with DRS. Soa's out of the race. Soa's now out of the race. He Schumachered himself. He pulled a Mick Schumacher there at turn number 10, and I think just lost the back end and could not keep it out of the wall, so Soa is out. So only 10 drivers remain. Of course, everybody still in this race will be earning points, but who's going to come out on top? B-Tom now, DRS wide open on that V-Carb's rear wing into 6/10, into half a second. Going to be dumping all the battery he can. 4.5 tenths now. Could be looking at a potential drag race to the line. Fight Me Now Bot doing everything he can, trying to hold on to P1. He's out of battery. B-Tom looking around the outside. Going to be wheel to wheel. Going to be a drag race to the line. Fight Me Now Bot gets loose. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Who's going to appear first? B-Tom taking the tight line. B-Tom on the final lap steals the race away from Fight Me Now Bot. It's Lurka coming across the line in 3rd, followed by MacT in 4th. Mango with a great race on his own. He'll come away in 5th. Muncher in 6th. Illyrian, Giannis, and Zroski. And then Vanzantino. But Fight Me Now Bot leads all the way till the final corner of the race. But B-Tom still manages to get it done and extends his championship lead. That should put him at now 48 points adrift, maybe 49. And the drivers, but a huge result as At the Death just gets it done. And it's the American once again on top in a very, very chaotic race. Mango, I think deservedly, though, getting driver of the day, but race winner, fastest lap, goes to B-Tom, who steals that away in the death as well by about 2/10. But it's Mango, it's B-Tom winning by 0.12 over the man who started from pole. Of course, Lurka still a solid result to come home third. MacD started 8th, finished 4th. Mango back in the grid to finish 5th. Certainly a good result. And of course, there is your finishing order. But certainly was an interesting one. Again, definitely be sure to tune in tomorrow for Group 2 around this same circuit. But until then, hopefully you've enjoyed. Again, definitely tune in tomorrow for Group 2. Should be commentated by the great Jarvis Cold. So should be interesting to see there. I've been Vacant Haddock. And until next time, we'll see you later. Have a good one.